Hey guys, I'm Marcus Stewart, and welcome to Call It in the Ring, a wrestling recap and discussion show with yours truly, and we are talking about Monday Night Raw, airing November 12th, 2018, from Kansas City, Missouri. And yeah, it's been a little while. You guys probably noticed, if you're a regular listener, that I actually missed SmackDown last week, or probably missed it. I did watch the show. I just was not able to get up a review of it as in a timely manner that I would have liked. A lot of things just came up over the last week, and like I was gonna record it, and then things kept coming up, and then the further along it got, it's like, it might be too late at this point. So I just decided not to put it up just because of how it, at least for me, it felt like it was too late. But that's also going to segue into my next announcement, is that after Survivor Series this Sunday on the WWE Network, which you can order for $9.99. Man, I wish I was getting a paycheck for that. But yeah, after Survivor Series, I won't be reviewing the shows weekly anymore. The show will still be around, but instead I'm going to be transitioning to only reviewing the pay-per-views, or like the network events, whatever you want to call them, just because of things that are coming up just for me professionally and personally that I'm working on. It's just getting harder to put these shows out in the time frame that I would like. Kind of last week's SmackDown was kind of an example of that, of just I'm kind of in a transitioning phase at the moment, planning a move and all these big things. So yeah, it was kind of a hard decision, and it might not be permanent. I might go back to it after things kind of settle down. But for the future, beginning next week, is just I just won't be able to kind of watch the shows and review the shows and then edit them, because usually I do all that in a day, which can take the entire day, at least half the first day, because I kind of crammed that in among all the kind of the other stuff that I got my hands in. So yeah, just to kind of ease my schedule a bit and to kind of allow me to focus on other things, for now, I'm going to have to, unfortunately, cease reviewing Raw and SmackDown and focus on the pay-per-views / network events. I apologize if that's a bummer to you, if you're a fan of this show and you like hearing me talk about Raw and SmackDown. First of all, thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope you'll stick around and still listen to me talk about those big events, because I still do want to talk about wrestling. And like I said, this might not be permanent. We'll see once how things shake out. But this would just be better for me and my kind of workload going forward. So just wanted to get that out there. And now we can go on to what will be the final Monday Night Raw that I will be reviewing for a while. And it opens up with a tag team battle royal. All the tag teams not named the Authors of Pain are competing to see who will be the captain of the tag team Survivor Series elimination tag team match, if that makes sense. Like, even Michael Cole later in the show was fumbling over trying to describe it, but it's essentially like the elimination, like the traditional singles elimination tags, but for the tag division. So it's every tag team on both shows in one tag team to determine who has the best tag division, I guess. So yeah, and it's supposed to be, over the top rope battle royal, and everyone's in the ring, and everyone's doing their, punching and kicking and just grunting and all that battle royal goodness. But it does not last long, because Braun Strowman makes his presence known. If there was a wall, he would have smashed through it like a Kool-Aid man and said, "Oh yeah," and then just proceeded to murder everyone in the match. People are trying to come at him, which is kind of silly, because like, people are leaving the ring to go after Braun while he's on the ramp, and it's like, I mean, like, it's a battle royal. You want to stay in the ring to try to win, right? Because the match is still going. There's no disqualifications. So like the Lucha House Party, who, Kalisto, Lince Dorado, and Grand Metalik are like diving over the ropes to hit Braun. It fails miserably. I was thinking like, aren't you guys? I mean, I think they went through like the middle rope or whatever, but just the idea of like, we're just gonna jump at this guy instead of try to win this match that we're in, was silly. And at first I thought they were gonna have Braun win the thing on his own, like he did to get his WrestleMania tag title match earlier this year when he won the tag team battle royal single-handedly and without actually being a part of the match until the last minute, but it was allowed to fly. Kind of like Shane McMahon winning the World Cup. It seems to be a theme this year with WWE. But thankfully that does not happen again. He just hurts everybody because he can. And he pretty much grabs a mic and says he's not going anywhere until he gets both Baron Corbin and Brock Lesnar and a Universal title. And Stephanie McMahon makes her return. Yay. That's sarcastic. Usually not fan of seeing Stephanie. But she shows up and she starts her Stephanie rant about how Raw is really important for Survivor Series and that she needs Braun to be on the team. And Braun thankfully goes off on her saying that he does not give a damn about Survivor Series, or at least Survivor Series for Raw. Like, he doesn't care about representing the brand. He doesn't care about Shane McMahon. The only thing he cares about is Brock Lesnar and a Universal title and killing Baron Corbin. So thank goodness for that. It's not often you get to see someone stand up to Stephanie. Not that Braun really needs to stand up to her because he's already much taller than her. And then Stephanie tries her damnedest to try to steal Braun's balls by doing her Stephanie kind of talk down of like, well, you need to care because, we can't lose to SmackDown because brand supremacy and all this stuff that nobody really cares about except for WWE. And she offers him a deal saying that, hey, look, Survivor Series is this Sunday. If you can get through that, like if you can just work with me here, be on the team, win, and then after that, I'll give you anything you want, money, cars, like a bunch of kind of like frivolous things, which Braun says he doesn't care about that kind of stuff. He just wants the Universal Championship and Baron Corbin's head on a pike, which Steph is more than happy to grant. She's like, well, cool, whatever it takes. You can have all of those things. And Braun wisely keeps piling it on, saying, I want both of them, and I want to make the stipulation. I'm not sure if he was referring to the stipulation for both matches, like if he gets to choose for both, or if it was just one of them. But Stephanie okays it anyway, and says that's. Oh, and he also wants Baron Corbin to sign a waiver so that he is not responsible for the 1001 ways that he plans to hurt and maim him. He's going to beat Corbin so hard his hair is going to grow back only to fall off again like it was about to before he shaved it. And Stephanie's like, cool, just don't kill Corbin before Survivor Series and you've got yourself a deal. Braun tolerates this and is like, cool. And then Ronda Rousey, of all people, come out and she snatches the mic from Stephanie. Again, someone else that can stand up to Stephanie and not get emasculated, which is always nice. And she starts talking about Becky Lynch, responding to what Becky said about her on SmackDown. And she threatens Stephanie to beat Stephanie up for what feels like the millionth time, which I never get tired of because Stephanie, prior to Ronda Rousey, was severely lacking in comeuppance. Like, you would only see Stephanie kind of get hers at WrestleMania, and then you would have to suffer her for the rest of the year. So one thing I like Ronda Rousey, and one of the reasons I do is she's been the only superstar that can consistently punish Stephanie for her doucheness. And then after Ronda brings out Baron Corbin, who tells everyone, like, hey guys, we got to focus on SmackDown. We got to get ready for Survivor Series. And that earns him a nice little judo flip from Rousey. And Corbin's looking like, what the hell? Ronda leaves. And then Corbin turns around to face Strowman. And it gets pretty heated between the two as Stephanie gets in between them. And it's like, guys, just save it, just save it. And then Braun says that Baron better enjoy being Stephanie's lapdog because when Braun gets his hands on him, he's gonna neuter Corbin, which is a decent line, not bad. And that ends this pretty standard long talking opening Raw segment. I mean, at least it started with a match that didn't last long, but at least it started with some action in general. So that's always a nice change of pace for that. We get our first match of the night. Ember Moon seeking retribution against Tamina, the threatening Tamina, who is wearing an outfit who kind of makes her look like a, I don't know why I thought this, but it's like, it makes her look like a weird, like, superhero or villain character. Like, she looks like a reject or an extra in, like, a Thor movie. I don't know why, but that's what I kept thinking of when I saw her in her, like, weird vest thing. Like, she should have been in Thor Ragnarok as, like, an underling of Hela for some reason. I don't know. But, yeah, Tamina is wrestling Ember. Alexa Bliss is watching in the back, because later on tonight she's going to assemble her Women's Survivor Series team. She's going to blow the conch horn and get everybody together. This match is nothing special, primarily because Tamina is nothing special. I've never really been entertained by Tamina. And WWE has not given me a reason to entertain me with Tamina. The 2 times that they've tried, including now, the other time was Team Bad, which the less said about that, the better. But unfortunately, and Nia Jax is at ringside for this, of course, too, because her and Tamina are best buds. And so Ember's more or less having to fight both of them. Unfortunately, Nia distracts Ember as she's climbing the top rope, which allows Tamina to shove her down for a big crash. And then Tamina hits her hideous, I say, Superfly Splash to get the 1, 2, 3. Like, it was just hideous. Like, I don't like saying this as a guy that's never stepped into a wrestling ring in my life, and I don't pretend to know more than a wrestler, but I think I could hit a better Superfly Splash than that, which I don't, like, her Superfly Splash has never been great, which in a way that's crazy, given that her dad is like the master of it, but like compared to like the Usos, who hit beautiful splashes, like their Superfly splashes look awesome. Hers is awkward and it doesn't even really get much height, and this might be the worst one I've ever seen her do, and it was never great to begin with. So I was just looking at that like, and it made it worse that that won the match against someone, again, Ember Moon, who could be the top babyface in the division, not named Ronda Rousey, kind of just getting beat again by Tamina, who has done nothing. Like, I don't understand what they're doing with Ember right now. And then to make things worse, Ember gets beaten up by both ladies post-match. I mean, they're obviously using Ember to establish that, hey, these two are a threat, you better watch out. But again, it's such a lopsided team, and like, oh yeah, Nia actually buys a threat because 1, she's bigger, and on 2, she's actually accomplished things, like she's been a champion before and has beaten people, whereas Tamina is kind of, this is almost like the lesser version of the Dolph Drew relationship of like, one is clearly not like the other, where it's like, feels like Dolph needs Drew way more than Drew needs Dolph, because Drew does not need Dolph at all. And this is this is worse, because at least Dolph has actually accomplished things. So yeah, not happy with this match. Next up, we get an in-ring interview with Seth Rollins, with Corey Graves doing the honors. And Corey's asking him about, first he talks about Survivor Series, asking what he thinks about Shinsuke Nakamura, who Seth will be facing in a champion versus champion match. The mid-card titles, of course. And Seth says he's excited, but basically does not care about Nakamura. Though he does acknowledge that Nakamura is a threat, and that if his head's not in the game, he is going to get a knee to the face. But of course, his main focus is on his former friend, his former brother, Dean Ambrose. And he kind of reiterates what he's been saying, that Ambrose isn't man enough to give him the explanation that he feels he deserves. And that brings us to Dean Ambrose on the Titantron, who is outside of the arena, which is apparently very cold, because he's sitting on a car next to like a barrel that's on fire to give him some heat. And he finally kind of gives us an explanation. like he says that he doesn't. Well, first he says he doesn't owe any of us anything. You know, us the fans, Seth. I don't know if that includes his wife Renee. It would seem so too, because she still doesn't know what the hell's going on. But screw us, basically. And he talks about how when he was in the Shield, he felt like originally that they were stronger together, but over time, maybe because he was so selfish and self-absorbed, he didn't really see everything that was going on around him until he did, and he realized that the Shield, in reality, made him weak, and that he hasn't changed. He's still the same guy that he's always been. He's just, I guess his eyes have just been opened now, and that he basically wants to focus on himself, and that Roman and Seth have only held him back from his, I guess, his true potential. But he's gonna take care of that because he's got the shield vest, which he says used to be a symbol of, I guess, like power. And he douses it in some gasoline, and he chucks that thing right into the barrel of fire, saying that he's got to burn it down. And he walks off. And Seth is looking very emotional, like a nice little cell job from Seth. Looks like he was almost kind of choked up watching that, and then he kind of storms off to the back. And yeah, Ambrose was pretty good here. The explanation is still kind of vague. I don't think he has to give us a reason yet, but it needs to come very, very soon, because you can only have the question of what exactly did you do this for? I mean, Dean's insane, you know, his character is, at least, so I guess it kind of plays into that. He's not going to sit down and it's like, this is the precise reason why I did what I did. Like, just kind of alluding to maybe what it could be. And then Michael Cole afterwards asked Renee Young again, like, so what's up with your crazy ass husband that we keep talking shit about right next to you? And Renee says that this is Dean's story to tell. And she's got nothing. She's in the same boat as all of us. Which is an interesting take. But yeah, this, I feel like after this week, because, you know, Survivor Series, I mean, this feud really can't take off in earnest until after Survivor Series, because Survivor Series has, since the brand split, become entirely focused around brand battles and not really about storytelling or like personal stories, with the exception of one match that we'll get to later. Which kind of means that the writers get to take a break in terms of telling any real personal stories, which is annoying. So we're kind of in a holding pattern until after Survivor Series for this feud to really get going. So that's but yeah, that kind of explains, like, Ambrose kind of giving us a little bit more, but I wouldn't expect the like big, like, all right, you want to know why? Until next Monday, hopefully, because it really needs to get there, I think, at this point, so we can really kind of start cooking with fire when it comes to this feud. No pun intended. So, Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre talk about embarrassing Kurt Angle, and Drew saying, man, he's never felt so disgusted and embarrassed for someone than he did when he humiliated Kurt Angle in the main event last week, and that Raw now belongs to Drew McIntyre, and that on Drew McIntyre's Raw, there's no room for weakness and nostalgia. And Drew cuts a nice little promo here, really feeling like the top heel on the show now, and he's kind of killing it talking about this. He takes credit for ending Kurt's career as well as dismantling the Shield, and he's just rolling, and Dolph's just kind of in the background looking kind of useless, which he pretty much is compared to Drew. Finn Balor comes out and he says that Drew crossed the line for what he did to Angle, saying that he could have beaten him at any time, but there was no need to embarrass him. And Drew is kind of like, cry me a river, Finn. You know, he's like, you're the thing that I hate the most around here in terms of your attitude, and says that I think what was the line he said? Like, dignity is not reserved for all. And Finn is ready to fight. He's like, hey, since you beat the shit out of me last week for no reason, how about you and I go at it? And Drew is like, okay, but you're not going to wrestle me. You're going to wrestle against the real best in the world, Shane McMahon be damned, Dolph Ziggler. And if you beat Dolph, maybe I'll consider lowering myself to you. And then he gives Finn that old Glasgow kiss, as Corey Graves like to call it, that big old headbutt to Finn just for good measure. And that jumps us straight to the next match of Finn versus Dolph, with Finn at a disadvantage immediately thanks to that Scottish pummeling. This is a solid back and forth match. Of course, Finn just fighting underneath, Dolph doing his usual stuff. And thankfully, Finn picks up a nice little surprise win, just kind of countering Dolph's roll-up into a roll-up of his own, and then escaping before he gets a Claymore kicked again. But yeah, looks like we're getting Finn Balor versus Drew McIntyre. Cool. It's, again, I've said that Balor's a guy that really I would like to see in more like actual stories and just kind of floating around, which is what he tends to do. So in a story with one of my favorite guys on the entire roster right now, who's moving on up in the world at a rapid pace, A-okay with that. Finn versus Drew should be a lot of fun if it becomes a full-on thing. So backstage, Finn runs into Stephanie McMahon, who congratulates Finn and adds him to the Survivor Series team. Drew McIntyre shows up, and him and Finn are about to go at it, but Stephanie gets in between and says, like, hey, everyone chill out. Just save it for after Survivor Series. You can kill each other all you want then, but for now, you got to be a team. And she kind of hypes up all three of them, telling them that, kill SmackDown. Use that energy to kill SmackDown. And Finn, Drew, and Dolph kind of reluctantly back off. Nothing much there. Next up, we get Ronda Rousey, who comes out to the ring, and she talks about how she wasn't so much insulting Becky's past with her comments last week. Like, she wasn't trying to belittle Becky and kind of make light of her journey to get to where she was, but she was merely pointing out the absurdity of Becky actually ripping her arm off, given that Ronda has literally been training since childhood to be a fighter and a competitor. And she calls her a millennial man, which made me think of Chris Jericho, because he was the Millennium Man when he debuted. But she calls her because Becky's calling herself the man, and she says, you're a millennial man who's too sensitive, and talking about how life isn't fair, and because it is, and stuff like that, and basically just using the kind of old people millennial complaint, which is kind of weird to hear from Rousey, because she's like my age, if not younger. Like, she's a millennial herself. So that was a weird little insult, and I'm not really a fan of millennial insults, especially coming from millennials. But I get what she's saying there, but it was like, I don't know about that. What I did like is that she didn't say that, like, Ronda didn't establish her catchphrase or her mantra of fight like a girl, only for one of the top women to refer to herself as the man, which that was a good dig there. So it kind of made up for the millennial comment. Nia Jax comes out with Tamina and just kind of wishes her luck again, just kind of like a not so, or a very passive aggressive reminder of like, hey, once you're done with Becky, I'm gonna kill you and take your belt, so watch out. Next up, we get the Riot Squad, and Ruby Riott gives a fake apology, talking about why, or not why, but like her for breaking Jim Neidhart's sunglasses that Natalya brought to the ring last week. We still don't know who won the match. I mean, we didn't get an update on that because the match just kind of ended. You would presume that the good girls won because the Riots are the one that left, but the great mystery of who won between the Riot Squad and Sasha, Bayley, and Natalya is still up there. But yeah, Ruby pretends to care that she broke her glasses and pretends to be genuine, and of course it's all a ruse, and she's like, I loved it, it was great, and I don't think I went far enough. So she's and then she says that Jim Neidhart wore those sunglasses for years because he was trying to hide his shame that comes from looking at his own daughter. That's enough to bring Natty out from the crowd, kind of tricking the Riot Squad by having her music hit, and then Logan and Morgan going out to the ramp to wait for her, only for Natty to come from behind and beat up Ruby. Thank God that she knew that Logan and Morgan would go out to the ramp like that, and that Ruby would stay in the ring. That was imagine if that had gone wrong. But yep, Natty comes in from behind and gets some licks in on Ruby, but eventually the numbers game catch up to her, and she gets beaten down. And they even perform a heart attack on Natty just to really rub it in. It's not a very good one, but then again, it's not a move that they use regularly, so it should pass. But yeah, like I said last week, I'm a fan of seeing non-championship feuds and storylines in the women's division, because it's something we don't get often enough. So it gives the Riot something to do. It plays into their characters fine, and it makes me care about Natty, who is someone that, even though I've always respected her ring work, I don't think I've ever actually really just cared about her like as a character, like gotten behind her. But this story is kind of helping with that. So I'm actually pretty into this whole little thing. So next up, we get the tag battle royal attempt number 2. We're gonna do it for realsies this time. Of course, the rules is that only one of the partners has to go. So if one half of the tag team gets eliminated, then the other one just has to leave. The Lucha House Party, because they're a trio, they're all in the match, which Corey Graves correctly points out is kind of unfair. Cole tries to defend it, saying like, well, maybe it makes them easier to eliminate because there's more of them to touch, which I get, but at the same time, how is that allowed, really? But whatever. It's kind of like New Day, but and that it's kind of weird for good guys to have an unfair advantage like that. The Revival get dumped like nothing, which is, I'm a Revival fan, so that's kind of annoying but not surprising. This battle royal pretty much just served as a stark reminder that the tag division on Raw is pretty lame. It's a really lame division, like, because now you kind of see everybody in there that's not the Authors of Pain, because like outside of the Revival, who are the only other legit team, the two most legit badass teams on Raw are both heels, and all the baby faces are garbage. The B team are back to being just jokes. The eventual winners, Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, are a slap together team that, if nothing else, they had a really cool combo here where they hit like a moonsault neckbreaker combo with Roode having, I think it was Connor or one of the Ascension guys, in a neckbreaker position, like a standing neckbreaker, and then Gable moonsaulting on top of him and then delivering the neckbreaker with Roode, which I've never seen that before, so that was cool. So at least they're coming up with cool combo moves, as weird as the team is. But yeah, Roode and Gable won. Why not? It's a team of losers. But SmackDown should absolutely win that match because they have a far more credible tag team division, which probably means that they're going to lose. So, yep, nothing to see there. Next up, we get Brock Lesnar making a rare appearance alongside Paul Heyman. And Paul talks about Survivor Series and then shifts over to AJ Styles, who Brock will be facing for the second year in a row. And he goes into his kind of Heyman speech saying that Brock's the conqueror and he's all this, and like, I say, good sir, Brock Lesnar, and blah 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 blah, and that AJ is gonna and that Brock has been wanting to kill AJ more than anyone else because AJ came so close to winning last year that I guess that offended Brock or something. There's a great bit where Paul quotes Hotel California and tells any youngins in the crowd that might not understand the reference to go Google it, bitches, because he's not here to explain it. Which I thought was a funny line. Ooh, and excuse me. Hope you can't tell, but I kind of coming off a little bit of a got sniffles right now, so I'm a little congested a little bit. So I hope I sound okay, but pretty much just hyping up Brock's destruction of AJ Styles. And then Jinder Mahal interrupts, and in a nice bit of continuity, he comes out and offers to help Brock focus on beating AJ because he has not forgotten that last year it was originally supposed to be Jinder Mahal taking on AJ, or taking on Brock, I should say, back when Mahal was in his WWE Championship reign of doom, and that AJ stole the title from him and thus his big moment to slay the beast. So he wants payback. So he's like, hey, big man, you shouldn't underestimate AJ. So how about I give you some deep breathing lessons and, you can kill him for me. And Heyman is just kind of amused by this, and he asks if Brock actually wants to hear about his mantra. And then Brock says, hey, let him in. You shouldn't want to hear this, Paul. You're Jewish. Just the good old classic, just Brock, just talking. Of course, this is all a ruse because Jinder Mahal and the Singh brothers are idiots. They get into the ring. Jinder tries to do his Shanti thing, and then Brock proceeds to eviscerate them. And does he ever, especially to Sunil Singh, who was the Singh in the white shirt, where he hits a German suplex, and because he's basically throwing children, like literally the Singh brothers are like little kids that he's like suplexing the hell out of. Like the first German suplex he gives to Sunil Singh is like right on the back of his neck. Like he goes flying and he lands squarely on the back of his head and neck, and it looked brutal. Like I literally cringed watching him throw him there, and I was hoping he was all right because he was kind of in the corner lying there for a bit as Brock proceeded to destroy the village. And yeah, go back and watch if you see it. But I gasped. I was like, oh my god, is he okay? And then it got worse because he picked him up again like a child, just kind of grabbed him by his pants and lifted him up with one arm, and then gave another super hard German suplex on the back of his head, like only to Sunil. Samir, thankfully, his two Germans, he landed on kind of like his lower back, so he was fine. But like Sunil was just like, he was just eating those Germans, or the back of his neck, I should say, was eating those Germans. So I hope he's okay after all that, because it looked legitimately painful. Like Brock just throws people around. And then, of course, Jinder, he gets a nice F5 to the floor, because why not? And there we go. So for all two people that were disappointed that we didn't get Jinder versus Brock last year, here's a nice little encapsulation of what that match would have been anyway. So, ta-da. Only had to wait a year for it. Next up, we have Lashley taking on Elias, and this match will determine the final spot for the Raw Men's Survivor Series team. Bobby Lashley comes out in sunglasses to kind of, I guess, up his douchiness, and he gets in the ring and he does like a pose demonstration with Leo, hyping him up, telling him to strike all these different poses and telling us to drool over his amazing body and that Michelangelo could never sculpt anything like Lashley and all that good stuff. Bobby Lashley. And Elias comes out in a pretty hilarious bit. He's on the phone and he's talking out loud about it. He's like saying that he's calling Child Protective Services, and he's in a fake conversation with this child custody agent. And he says he'd like to report a kidnapping. Apparently Bobby Lashley kidnapped a small child weeks ago and is holding him against his will. And he's like, yeah, and he's got the poor kid pointing at his muscles, and he even bent over because at one point during the pose down, Leo, I guess to insult the crowd, tells Lashley to strike like a special pose, and Lashley just bends over, like just shoves his ass out, and he does it multiple times, and it was really weird. I didn't know if it was like some sort of inside reference to like the city of like, is that a thing like with a sports team or something like that, or it felt like an inside joke to me. Otherwise, it was just really random. But yeah, just Bobby Lashley, completely stoic, mean face, bending over and just putting his butt out and just showing the fans was bizarre. So Elias kind of commented like, yeah, he's got this little kid. He's bending over in front of his little kid. I don't know what's going on here. And asking Leo like, son, how old are you? And again, Elias's delivery, like with everything he does, is just spot on and hilarious because it's just the perfect amount of dryness to it. That it's absolutely gold. And then Bobby gets upset and it's like, hey, why don't you come down here and say it in my face? Which I think he meant say it to my face, because say it in my face would suggest that Elias is going to shove his face inside of Bobby's face and I guess say it to like his brain, which would be very weird. But not as weird as Bobby bending over and sticking his butt out to thousands of people in an arena. But yeah, that leads us to the match, which is not a long match, which is probably for the best because Elias still, again, his ring work is not the reason that you watch Elias. And a kind of surprising, slightly surprising, I guess, finish. Elias loses. He gets counted out when he gets sent outside. And as he tries to get back in, Leo, who was kind of hiding under the ring, grabs his leg and kind of holds him there long enough to get counted out. So Elias gets screwed out of it, and Lashley completes the field for the men's Survivor Series team. Elias won't take that lying down though because he kind of dispatches of Lashley, and then he catches Leo and tosses him over the top rope to on top of Lashley. It's kind of stand tall at the end, so Elias will be fine. I mean, dude is kind of set. And I guess, like, if you're going pure kayfabe, Lashley is the stronger teammate. I would probably prefer Lashley on my team anyway. Though, if you got Elias to go out and rip on the SmackDown team, that could get in their heads before the match. And maybe they'll be at a mental disadvantage because Elias is so good at burning people that I don't think anyone could handle it. Anyway, from the men's Survivor Series team to the women's Survivor Series team, we have Alexa Bliss, who's coming out again in her very attractive kind of businesswoman look, hair up and everything. And she's going to announce the team that she will be leading. And those team members are Natalya, who was not out there because apparently Alexa had her sent home to kind of cool off. Mickie James, no surprise there, as well as Nia Jax and Tamina. And Alexa Bliss, thankfully, acknowledges that, hey, Nia, I know you and I have had our issues, but, I'm glad we could put these aside for the title thing. And I'm glad they brought that up because I was thinking, like, it wasn't that long ago that you guys were trying to kill each other over, like, literally betraying Nia's trust as her best friend and calling her a fat bastard. Obviously time heals all wounds in wrestling. We've seen it time and time again, but it's still nice to at least have, for the sake of continuity, acknowledge like, you guys hated each other recently. Why are you guys cool with each other now without any explanation? So at least we got some of that here. Anyways, there's one vacant spot left on the women's team, and Alexa is going to decide it by having Sasha Banks and Bayley fight each other because she figures that if you put two best friends against each other, the one that can kind of put the friendship aside for the sake of victory is probably the more valuable team member. So we get that match next. Sasha Banks, Bayley, one more time. And this is a totally fine back and forth match. These two, by default, can have a decent, totally fine match. There's a few good stuff in here that they've never done before. Bayley hit like the Bayley to belly to Sasha on the apron, which was nice to see. But yeah, just kind of a good back and forth match. And at first I was thinking like, are we finally gonna get like are they returning to this story of like these two being friends but then being at odds with each other? Are they like, because I was thinking in my mind like, okay, like if they're going to go back to this and try to reignite this storyline that has gone ice cold and has been for months because they've dropped it, like maybe Bayley will win and then Sasha's ego can't take that, and then that's finally what maybe has her snap either this night or at Survivor Series or Monday night or next week. Or Sasha wins but by dirty tactics because Sasha is the kind of character that will do whatever it takes to get the spotlight. Either one would have been fine, and surprisingly, we don't get either one because Sasha gets Bayley in the bank statement, and the other three ladies get into the ring and beat them up for the DQ. And Alexa gets on the mic and is like, "Aw, I guess no one wins," but to show how much of a nerd and a stickler I am, I kept rewinding this moment because I was like, somebody had to have gotten hit first because whoever gets hurt or whoever get hit first technically wins the match by DQ. And after checking the tape multiple times, I challenged the play, talked it over with the referees on the side of the field to get a unanimous decision. Bailey was totally hit first. Like, Tamina or Nia, whoever it was, like, they came into the ring, and the first thing they do, whoever it was stomp on Bailey's head. And I think the first 2 hits were on Bailey from what I remember. Like, Sasha didn't really get hit till after the hold was broken. So I was like, technically, no. Like, you would have to hit them both at the exact same time, which, to be fair, it's kind of hard to do. But at the same time, if you're kind of planning it of, like, we can't have either one win, you gotta try to hit them both at the same time. So, like, I don't know what that would be. Like, I guess the best way to do it would be, like, if Nia just jumped on both of them, because that she would squash both of them at the same time, so neither of them really gets hit first, because she's just kind of falling on both. So maybe that would have been the way to do it, but yeah, after watching, I was like, no, Bailey totally got hit first, so Bailey technically should be on the Survivor Series team right now, but alas, that is not what the script calls for. And apparently Alexa just did this just to be a jerk, and because she had long decided who the 5th woman would be on the team. And it's Ruby Riott, which, hey, it turns out that desecrating the memories of a deceased future Hall of Famer is enough to earn you a featured spot in a Survivor Series. But cool for Ruby. It's nice to see her getting the spotlight like this. She has done a good work since coming to the main roster. And then it seems like the show's gonna end here, because I didn't realize this was the main event until I looked at the clock. I was like, oh, I guess this is what we're closing with. And then we cut to backstage where there's a ruckus going on, and we go into the women's locker room, and we see Becky Lynch somehow has gotten to the building, and she has to disarm her on Ronda Rousey in the locker room, and she is cranking on that thing, and Ronda's screaming, and Becky's gloating, and a bunch of officials come in trying to get Becky off of Ronda, and eventually they do. And Ronda is holding her arm, looking pissed off. And the Raw women's team is watching us on the Titantron like, whoa, what the hell? How did Becky get in here? And of course, you probably can tell where this is going, where we get the rest of the SmackDown women's locker room coming through the crowd and rushing the ring, and we get a giant women brand versus brand brawl. It's basically Under Siege Part 2 Diet Edition. Though this will be better because it won't be replayed a gazillion times, and we don't have to start a hashtag Under Siege or any of that crap. But yeah, the SmackDown women get into a big old brawl with the Raw women. Becky Lynch comes out. She's out there too and joining them. And this is a pretty hot finish. The crowd seemed into it. And somewhere in there, Becky got her nose broken or at least busted open, because at one point she's fine, and then you see her next and she is covered in blood, like covered in blood, like both of her arms are bloody. And that's what I noticed first, and I was like, oh my god, did she tear someone's heart out of their chest or what? Why are her hands covered in blood? And then you see her face, and her face is like, it is the closest to the kind of the Attitude Era Crimson Mask I have seen in modern WWE in some time, which a broken nose will certainly do for you. So yeah, her face is covered in blood, but she's still trucking, and it's only getting Becky more cheered because Becky Lynch is easily one of the hottest things in the entire company right now. Like she's definitely top 3, I would say. Ronda Rousey eventually makes her way out, but she's one-armed at this point, and she gets in and she gets her licks, but it does not last long because Becky comes in with a chair and proceeds to beat on Ronda with the chair, primarily attacking her already injured arm, obviously kind of setting up a disadvantage for Ronda at SummerSlam, Survivor Series, excuse me, the other pay-per-view that has 2 S's. And yeah, we got a bloody Becky beating up on one-armed Ronda, and the crowd's really into it. Lana has blue hair. It's a random thing to point out in all this, but yeah, she got blue hair for some reason. Well, I guess for SmackDown, not really for some reason, but yeah, just random. And also Charlotte Flair is in this, which is interesting because, of course, on SmackDown, the one that I did not review, Charlotte was offered the team captain spot, but she did not show up. So that's been the biggest question for the SmackDown team, is if Charlotte is going to participate. But she was in this brawl, so she's at least down for trespassing and assault and battery. That's okay for her. But yeah, the SmackDown women stand tall. They escape through the crowd. Bloody Becky is basically the second coming of Jesus right now. And Ronda is in the ring holding her arm, and she's got a face that, if looks could kill, Ronda Rousey would have committed mass genocide by this point. And it's a great shot of her. Like the kind of back and forth shots between proud, gloating, but bloody Becky, and then just seething, one-armed Ronda just lasering Becky is great stuff. And this match may as well main event Survivor Series, because it is easily the best built match. It's the only match that has an actual story, like a personal like animosity behind it, and it's got two of the, like, at least personally, two of my favorite performers in the company. You've got like Becky Lynch, who has been straight fire, to steal a phrase from her, and then Ronda Rousey, who I've loved, and like two of the best trash talkers. Like, just let them, like, they've done this feud perfectly, of like, just let them talk shit to each other and let it be entertaining, and then when it's necessary, let them get physical. And they did a good job of kind of showing that, because obviously, you know, in real life, Ronda would probably eviscerate everyone in the women's roster, except for maybe Asuka. Asuka's pretty legit. But they've done a good job of like putting Becky on her level, and now they've got a storyline reason for Ronda being less than 100%, which plays into Becky's heel character of, you know, she's a heel. She's going to take unfair advantages and win by any means necessary. But she's still, push comes to shove, will fight you straight up. But like, getting in her some unfair licks beforehand. So this is basically going to be the match of the show in terms of the crowd reaction. That's what I'm predicting. I can't wait to see it. I thought this was really cool and well done, and man, like, it's crazy that this has all been set up with only like 3 weeks. Like, Survivor Series have been really rushed this year because of all the other crap that they've been doing in between the shows, like all the other network specials they've had to build towards. So Survivor Series has kind of suffered as a result, but this has been really great stuff given the short amount of time they've had to put it together. Again, the show feels like it's going to end here, but then we cut to Stephanie and Baron Corbin in the back, and Stephanie is just kind of reading the riot act to Baron, saying, "How could you let this happen? How could you not know that they were in the building? Where's security?" Corbin's trying to explain himself, but he is powerless against the overwhelming screeching ability of Stephanie McMahon. And then in kind of a weird production bit, like, they cut back to Becky and Ronda, but you can still hear Stephanie and Corbin going at it. Like, so I don't know if they cut back too soon, if they thought it was going to end, because you can hear them like yelling, and then before they fade out. So I don't know what that was, but it should have ended on those two anyway. So it's like someone came to their senses, like, actually, this is the more interesting thing. Let's get the camera off Stephanie for a second and go back to the two badass women that everyone wants to see. So that wraps up the go home show for Survivor Series. Outside of that segment, again, like I said before, Survivor Series has really been rushed this year, and it kind of a lazy build of like, let's just throw Raw against SmackDown. Let's just have the SmackDown champions fight the Raw champions. We don't have to tell any stories. Outside of Ronda versus Becky, it's just been brand supremacy. Like Shinsuke versus Seth, I'm excited for because it's the first time ever, and they're both great. But like, there's no story at all because Seth is knee deep into his Ambrose story, and Nakamura has nothing. He's just kind of basically waiting for Seth. But Seth flat out said that Nakamura is not his concern right now. I mean, obviously he's going to fight him, but like, it's not his concern. So that's a problem. And then, of course, the men's team being the same old, like, Raw versus SmackDown, brand supremacy. Hey, Shane McMahon's on this team for the third year in a row because reasons. And Stephanie be like, we have to win, even though we've won the last 2 years. Not that big a deal. This kind of same goes for the women. There's a bit more heat on that one, at least now, with the big brawl. And then AJ versus Brock will probably be good because last year's match was really good. But again, it just kind of suffers from just a lack of time. Like, just not enough time to actually get a real thing going together other than, yeah, we fought last year, but AJ saying this year is going to be different. And Brock saying, no, I'm going to kill you again. That's about it. So, yeah, that's, I guess the build is as good as it's going to get, given how much they have had the rush. But I will say this was a much better show than last week's show, which admittedly is not a hard bar to jump or even step over. But thankfully, this show was not quite the drag that the UK show was last week. So I'll take whatever small victory I can get. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening, and thanks for putting up with my stuffy nose voice. I will see you for SmackDown Live, I promise. I'm excited for SmackDown. Like I said, I did watch last week. I did see Nikki Cross debut, which made me a very happy camper and very surprised. They didn't pull a Carmella. They actually brought her up and put her with Sanity. So I don't know if that was a one-time thing or if she's on the main roster now. I guess we'll find out when I watch the show. Excited to see the follow-up for that. If you want to follow me on Twitter and let me know your thoughts, you can do so at MarcusStewart7. That's the number 7. You can also find me at my personal website for video games, MarcusWritesAboutGames.wordpress.com. You can also listen to my other podcast, Carving Gaming Rushmore. It's a video game list/debate show where me and 2 rotating guests debate the 4 best examples of a single video game related topic. You can also find me if you're into Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing games in general. I appear on 2 podcasts for Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. The first is called We Wanted Adventurers, and the second is called Dragon Guard. And both of those are very, very lighthearted, goofy, improv, just silly, fun things. On We Wanted Adventurers, I play a really dumb bard. And on Dragon Guard, I play a Hulk Hogan-esque badass tabaxi, which is Dungeons and Dragons speak for, like, basically a cat man. Like, think of Chester Cheetah if he was like a ranger. It's basically what I am, but he talks like Hulk Hogan. And you can find both of those campaigns on either extralife.com, SoundCloud, or Libsyn. Highly recommend checking those out. And until next time, wrestling fans, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.